There are moments when life whispers, slow down, you're not as strong as you used to be. But what if those whispers weren't a farewell to vitality, but an invitation to discover an even deeper well of strength within? Meet Martha, a vibrant soul in her early 60s, whose days in sunny Arizona began to dim under the shadow of aching joints and a weariness that seemed to steal her joy. Doctors' visits brought daunting news, and Martha felt the vibrant colors of her life fading to gray. But what happens when Martha refused to surrender? In the next few minutes, you'll witness Martha's journey, a journey of rediscovery, resilience, and the surprisingly simple secrets that helped her reclaim her health, energy, and passion for life. It's a story about the power of small changes to create big transformations. It's the story of Martha's rebirth. And if you're feeling those same whispers, those same aches, that nagging feeling that your best days might be behind you, then you're in the right place. This story has so much to offer you in this journey of rediscovering and taking back control of your body and your health. So take a deep breath, relax, and let Martha's story remind you that it's never too late to rewrite your own. Sunshine Valley. The name itself paints a picture, doesn't it? Rolling hills, clear blue skies, and that warm Arizona sun wrapping you in a gentle hug. For Martha, it had always been a promise. A promise of quiet contentment, of golden years spent doing the things she loved. But lately, the valley felt different. The sunshine, less bright. The air, a little heavier. Martha, you see, was the heart of Sunshine Valley. A retired schoolteacher with a smile that could coax a shy student out of their shell, and a garden bursting with roses that mirrored her own vibrant spirit. At 62, she had earned her rest. After decades of shaping young minds, she envisioned days spent tending her roses, baking cookies for her grandkids, and sharing stories over steaming mugs of tea with her lifelong friends. But life, as it often does, had other plans. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. A twinge in her knee after a morning spent weeding. A persistent fatigue that lingered even after a full night's sleep. At first, Martha dismissed it as the natural aches and pains of getting older. It happens to everyone, she'd tell herself, forcing a smile as she reached for the ibuprofen. But the twinges grew into throbbing aches. The fatigue deepened into a bone-weary exhaustion. Simple pleasures, like her morning walks through the neighborhood, became a monumental effort. The roses, once a source of immense joy, began to feel like a burden. The vibrant colors of her life began to mute, one by one. It wasn't just the physical discomfort, though that was certainly challenging. It was the sense of loss. Loss of independence. Loss of control. Loss of the woman she once was. Her grandchildren, little Emily and young Josh, were her pride and joy. They loved nothing more than to visit Grandma Martha and hear her stories of teaching the kids when she was their age. She used to love spending hours playing with them in the garden, but now, even a short game of hide-and-seek left her breathless and in pain. The guilt gnawed at her. She wanted to be the energetic, engaged grandmother they deserved. The hardest part, perhaps, was having to ask for help. Martha was a fiercely independent woman. She had always taken pride in her ability to handle things on her own. Now, she found herself relying on her daughter, Sarah, for everything from grocery shopping to mowing the lawn. "Mom, just let me do it," Sarah would say, her voice laced with concern. "You need to rest." And Martha would smile, trying to reassure her daughter, but inside, she felt a pang of shame. She didn't want to be a burden. She wanted to be strong again. She wanted to be herself again. Her friends noticed too. The lively banter at their weekly book club dwindled as Martha struggled to focus, her mind clouded by fatigue. The laughter lines around her eyes seemed deeper, etched with a weariness that couldn't be masked. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across her rose garden, Martha sat on her porch swing, watching the fireflies flicker in the twilight. She felt a deep ache in her heart, a sense of profound sadness. Was this it? Was this what her golden years were meant to be? A slow, steady decline into dependence and discomfort. She closed her eyes, and a single tear traced a path down her cheek. The warmth of the Arizona sun felt strangely cold. The promise of Sunshine Valley, now a distant, fading dream. But this feeling wouldn't last, as Martha knew she needed to get herself checked. So next on the agenda was a quick trip to the doctor's. Now, let's see what happens on her important visit with Dr. Evans and what the results will bring. The waiting room felt colder than usual that day. The air conditioning hummed a monotonous tune, and the magazines on the coffee table looked like they hadn't been touched in years. Martha flipped through one, but the glossy images of smiling faces and exotic destinations seemed to mock her own weary existence. She just couldn't ignore the growing feeling she needed to visit the doctor. She glanced at the clock on the wall. 2:47 p.m. Her appointment with Dr. Evans had been scheduled for weeks, but now that the moment was here, a knot of anxiety tightened in her stomach. She knew, deep down, that the news wasn't going to be good. The aches, the fatigue. They weren't just fleeting discomforts anymore. They were a signal. A warning sign. Finally, the nurse called her name. Martha Peterson. She rose, her joints protesting with a familiar creak, and followed the nurse down a sterile hallway lined with closed doors. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and a strange, undefinable sadness. Dr. Evans was a kind, older woman with a warm smile and gentle eyes. Martha had been seeing her for years, and she trusted her implicitly. But even Dr. Evans' reassuring presence couldn't ease the apprehension that filled the room. "So, Martha," Dr. Evans began, after a few moments of reviewing the chart. "I have your test results here." Martha braced herself. The doctor's words were gentle, but the diagnosis was stark. Elevated cholesterol. Unstable blood pressure. And, perhaps the most disheartening, early signs of osteoarthritis in her knees. "These things, they're not uncommon at your age," Dr. Evans said, her voice laced with a hint of concern. "But they do require attention. We need to make some changes." Changes. The word echoed in Martha's mind. What kind of changes? Medication, she suspected. Restrictions. Limitations. The very things she dreaded. Dr. Evans went on to explain the recommended course of action: a prescription for cholesterol-lowering medication, a blood pressure monitor, and a referral to a physical therapist. But more than that, she emphasized the need for lifestyle changes. Diet, exercise, stress management, she said, ticking off the items on her fingers. "These are crucial, Martha. Medication can help, but it's not a magic bullet. You need to take control of your health." As Dr. Evans spoke, Martha felt a wave of despair wash over her. It all seemed so overwhelming. So daunting. How could she possibly make such drastic changes at this point in her life? She thought of her rose garden, now neglected and overgrown. She thought of her grandchildren, whom she struggled to keep up with. She thought of her friends, and the vibrant, active life she was slowly losing. The future stretched before her, not as a tapestry of golden years, but as a bleak and uncertain landscape. A landscape of pills, pain, and limitations. The doctor's words, "You need to take control of your health," felt like a judgment. A reminder of her own failings. Had she let herself go? Had she been too complacent? As she left the office, the Arizona sun felt harsh and unforgiving. The warmth of the valley offered no comfort. She walked slowly to her car, each step a reminder of her aching joints. The diagnosis wasn't just about numbers on a chart. It was about the loss of her future. The loss of her dreams. The loss of herself. Back home, Martha sat on her porch swing, the same spot where she had watched the fireflies just days before. But tonight, the magic was gone. The fireflies seemed to mock her with their carefree dance. She closed her eyes, and this time, the tears flowed freely. A torrent of grief and fear. She felt like a burden. A failure. A shadow of the woman she once was. The weight of it all threatened to pull her under. All these changes she needed to make seemed impossible, and she felt there was no way out. And next, we see the effects these results have on Martha, as the weight of her situation starts to take over, sending her spiraling downwards. The days that followed the appointment with Dr. Evans were a blur of quiet despair. Martha found herself retreating further and further into herself, isolating herself from the very people who loved her most. The doctor's advice felt like it was simply not achievable in her life. Sunshine Valley, once a sanctuary, now felt like a gilded cage. The roses, still blooming in her garden, seemed to mock her with their vibrant colors and effortless beauty. She couldn't bring herself to tend them, to even step outside and breathe in their fragrant scent. The joy had been replaced by a heavy apathy. The medication sat untouched on her kitchen counter, a constant reminder of her failing health. She knew she should take it, that it was the responsible thing to do, but the thought of relying on pills for the rest of her life filled her with a deep sense of dread. The phone calls from her friends went unanswered. Invitations to lunch, to the movies, to the weekly book club, all politely declined. She couldn't face them. Couldn't bear to see the pity in their eyes, to hear their well-meaning but ultimately hollow words of encouragement. Even her grandchildren, Emily and Josh, sensed the shift in her demeanor. Their visits became less frequent, their laughter less boisterous. They knew Grandma Martha wasn't herself. They seemed scared of what would come next. The whispers of despair grew louder, more insistent. They told her she was old. That her best days were behind her. That she was a burden to her family. That she would never be the same again. This constant negativity began to shape her decisions. Martha's mornings were the worst. She woke up before dawn, her body stiff and aching. The first rays of sunlight, which once filled her with hope, now seemed to illuminate only her limitations. The whispers of despair were there as soon as she opened her eyes. She'd lie in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling, lost in a maze of negative thoughts. What was the point? What was the point of living if she couldn't enjoy the things she loved? If she couldn't be the person she wanted to be? She couldn't even find the will to even move. She started missing meals. The thought of cooking, of even preparing a simple sandwich, seemed like an insurmountable task. Her appetite dwindled, and she grew thinner, more frail. She remembered a time, not so long ago, when her life had been filled with purpose and joy. She had been a passionate teacher, a devoted wife, a loving mother. She had traveled the world, climbed mountains, danced the night away. But that woman felt like another person now. But now she felt like a ghost. A mere shadow of her former self. She wondered if this was who she was now, this sad shell of a person. One afternoon, Sarah came to visit. She found Martha sitting in her darkened living room, staring blankly at the television. The volume was turned down low, and the room was filled with an eerie silence. Sarah sat beside her mother, taking her hand. Martha's hand felt cold and lifeless. "Mom," Sarah said softly, "what's wrong? You haven't been yourself lately." Martha looked at her daughter, her eyes filled with tears. "I'm tired, Sarah," she whispered. "I'm just so tired." "Tired of what, Mom?" Sarah asked, her voice filled with concern. Martha hesitated, then confessed, "Tired of feeling like this. Tired of being a burden. Tired of just existing." Sarah wrapped her arms around her mother, holding her close. "Oh, Mom," she said, her own voice choked with tears. "You're not a burden. We love you. We want to help you." But Martha couldn't shake the feeling that she was a disappointment. That she was letting her family down. That she was failing at life. This despair was consuming her. As Sarah left that evening, Martha watched her drive away, a profound sense of loneliness washing over her. The whispers of despair grew louder than ever before, drowning out all other thoughts. Maybe they were right. But what happens one day as Martha sits on her couch and the TV happens to be on? Next, we'll discover the spark that is about to be ignited and see a glimpse of hope that is about to emerge. The cycle continued for days. Martha, in her quiet despair, had become a ghost in her own home. She rarely ventured outside, lost in her own internal world. But then, one afternoon, as she was passively watching TV, a little light shone through. She was idly flipping through channels, her attention barely registering what flickered across the screen. Commercials, reality shows, news reports, nothing held her interest. Just like all the other days. Then, as her finger hovered over the remote, a commercial came on that briefly captured her attention. After the commercial faded away, the next video that played had a title that caught her eye on YouTube: "Reclaim Your Strength After 60, Simple Steps to a Healthier You." Martha almost changed the channel. It sounded like just another generic self-help video, filled with empty promises and unrealistic expectations. She had watched so many of them over the years that it seemed futile to start watching now. But something, a tiny flicker of curiosity, made her stop. She clicked on the video. A woman with warm eyes and a reassuring smile filled the screen. The woman wasn't some young fitness guru either. She looked to be about Martha's age, maybe a little younger, and she spoke with a calm, confident voice. "If you're watching this," the woman said, "chances are you're feeling a little lost. Maybe you're experiencing aches and pains that you never used to have. Maybe you're feeling tired and discouraged. Maybe you're wondering if your best days are behind you. I'm here to tell you that they're not." The woman went on to share her own story, a story of struggling with similar health challenges after turning 60. She talked about the frustration of feeling her body betray her, the disappointment of not being able to do the things she loved, the fear of becoming a burden to her family. Martha realized that all these symptoms are exactly what she had been feeling lately. Martha listened intently, her heart resonating with every word. It was as if the woman was speaking directly to her soul. Like she was truly talking to her. The video wasn't just about problems, though. It was about solutions. The woman shared practical, actionable tips for improving health and vitality at any age. She talked about the importance of diet, exercise, and stress management. She emphasized the power of small changes, sustainable habits, and a positive mindset. She gave real, tangible, advice. She spoke of things like cherry juice before bed, and the magical way it can soothe joints. And about something called Greek yogurt that helped people get their strength back. She gave examples to prove it. She mentioned the healing power of certain foods, the benefits of gentle exercises, and the importance of connecting with others. She emphasized that it wasn't about drastic overhauls or punishing workouts, but about making small, consistent choices that would add up to big results. This was the light she had been waiting for. As Martha listened, something shifted within her. The heavy cloud of despair that had been hanging over her began to lift, just a little. The light she had felt had gone was there again. She realized that she wasn't alone. That other people were struggling with the same challenges. And that there was hope. That it was possible to reclaim her health and vitality, even at 62. She could do this. The video ended with a simple message: it's never too late to start. You have the power to change your life. Believe in yourself, and take the first step. Martha sat in silence for a moment, the woman's words echoing in her mind. A tiny spark of hope had been ignited within her, a flicker of determination that had been dormant for weeks. The determination was there, the light was there. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and made a decision. This was what she needed. She wasn't going to give up. She wasn't going to let her health challenges define her. She was going to fight back. She was going to take control of her life, she owed it to herself. And so she went outside. What will she do? And what happens when Martha takes a look back at her now overgrown and neglected garden? A familiar location that she hasn't ventured near for weeks. The next morning dawned with a clarity Martha hadn't felt in weeks. The Arizona sun streamed through her bedroom window, casting a warm, golden glow across the room. It was like the sun was shining for her and only her. Instead of the usual dread and fatigue, she felt a quiet sense of purpose. She now knew her purpose and what she must do. She got out of bed, her joints still stiff and aching, but with a newfound determination. She made her way to the kitchen, not for a cup of coffee and another morning of watching TV, but for a different kind of start. A day where she would actually try, not just hope to. As she stood at the counter, a plan began to form in her mind. She wouldn't try to overhaul her entire life overnight. She would start small, with simple, manageable changes. The woman in the YouTube video had emphasized the importance of consistency, and Martha knew that was key. She started the kettle for a cup of green tea. She recalled that green tea was an anti-inflammatory and could help to keep you calm. Martha felt like calmness was exactly what she needed to focus on at the moment. Then, she reached for a pad of paper and a pen. She would make a list. First, diet. She wouldn't deprive herself or go on some restrictive diet, but she would start incorporating more healthy foods into her meals. She'd start with the things the YouTube woman had mentioned: cherry juice, Greek yogurt, and green tea. Small additions that would add up to big impacts. Then, exercise. She wouldn't try to run a marathon or lift heavy weights, but she would commit to moving her body every day. A gentle walk around the block, a few stretches in the garden, a little bit of movement was better than nothing. Every little step she would take would be a win. And finally, stress management. She would reconnect with her friends, spend more time in nature, and find activities that brought her joy. She would make a conscious effort to focus on the positive, to cultivate gratitude, and to quiet the negative voices in her head. With her list in hand, Martha walked outside. She paused as she finally looked at her garden, her beloved garden, a mess she was now going to have to tackle. The roses, she realized, had been neglected. The roses, though still beautiful, were surrounded by weeds, their petals drooping slightly. She was determined to bring it back to its original, beautiful, form. She made her way to her favorite spot, a weathered wooden bench nestled beneath a sprawling rose bush. She sat down, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath. The scent of the roses filled her lungs, a familiar and comforting aroma. It reminded her of who she was. She thought about all the years she had spent tending this garden. The countless hours she had devoted to nurturing the roses, to pruning their branches, to protecting them from pests and disease. The garden had always been a reflection of her own life, a symbol of beauty, resilience, and growth. If the garden was strong, she was strong. And now, the garden was in disarray, just like her own life. But no more, today was the day to make a change. A wave of emotion washed over her. Sadness, regret, but also a fierce determination. She wasn't going to let her garden, or her life, wither and die. She was going to nurture it back to health. This garden symbolized the vow that she was about to make. She opened her eyes and looked at the roses, their delicate petals bathed in the morning sunlight. A single tear traced a path down her cheek. "I promise," she whispered, her voice filled with conviction. "I promise I will take care of you. And I promise I will take care of myself." It was a vow, spoken softly but with unwavering sincerity. A vow made to herself, to her garden, and to the future she was determined to create. The vow by the roses that started it all. She would take back control of her life, one small step at a time. She would reclaim her health, her vitality, and her joy. Today would be the first day. She stood up, walked over to the nearest rose bush, and began to gently pull away the weeds. The sun warmed her skin, the birds sang in the trees, and Martha felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in weeks. This was the first step on her journey. Now it was time to start implementing her plan, beginning with the addition of cherry juice into her new lifestyle and the journey to good health that comes with it. What impact will this new drink have, and will Martha be able to follow all the steps to ensure her own well-being? Next, we delve into Martha's cherry lifestyle change in Chapter 6, The Miracle in the Cherry Juice. With her vow made among the roses, Martha was ready to begin. She decided to start with the easiest change, adding cherry juice to her nightly routine. The YouTube video had highlighted its potential benefits, and it seemed like a simple, delicious way to kickstart her journey to better health. That evening, as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across Sunshine Valley, Martha found herself in the grocery store, standing in front of the juice aisle. There were so many options: apple juice, orange juice, grape juice. But she knew what she was looking for. Finally, she spotted it, a carton of 100% tart cherry juice. She picked it up, examining the label. It was a little pricier than her usual juice, but she reminded herself that this wasn't just a beverage. It was an investment in her health. Back home, Martha poured herself a glass of the deep red juice. It smelled tart and slightly sweet, a unique and inviting aroma. She took a sip, and her eyes widened. It was surprisingly delicious, not at all as sour as she had expected. As she savored the flavor, she recalled what the woman in the YouTube video had said about cherry juice. It wasn't just a tasty drink. It was a powerhouse of beneficial compounds. She explained that cherry juice was packed with something called anthocyanins. Now, anthocyanins, the narrator would have said, are these amazing plant-based compounds that give cherries their vibrant red color. But they're not just pretty. They're also incredibly powerful antioxidants and anti-inflammatories. That means they can help protect your cells from damage and reduce inflammation throughout your body. Martha thought about her aching joints, her stiff muscles. Inflammation, she knew, was a major culprit in her discomfort. If cherry juice could help reduce that inflammation, it was worth a try. The YouTube woman had also mentioned something else: melatonin. Melatonin, she had said, is a hormone that helps regulate your sleep cycle. As we age, our bodies produce less melatonin, which can lead to sleep problems. Cherry juice is a natural source of melatonin, so drinking it before bed can help you unwind, relax, and get a more restful night's sleep. Martha knew all too well the struggles of sleepless nights. Tossing and turning, unable to quiet her racing thoughts, she would eventually wake up exhausted and even more achy. If cherry juice could help her sleep better, it would be a true miracle. That night, Martha drank a glass of cherry juice about 30 minutes before bedtime. She settled into bed, feeling a sense of calm she hadn't experienced in weeks. She closed her eyes, and drifted off to sleep surprisingly quickly. The next morning, she woke up feeling different. Her joints were still a little stiff, but the throbbing ache had subsided. She felt more rested, more energized. She made her way to the kitchen, poured herself a cup of green tea, and smiled. Maybe, just maybe, this cherry juice thing was actually working. As the days turned into weeks, Martha continued her nightly ritual. She drank her cherry juice, savored its flavor, and anticipated the restful sleep that would follow. And she wasn't disappointed. Her sleep improved dramatically. She fell asleep faster, stayed asleep longer, and woke up feeling refreshed and rejuvenated. Her joint pain lessened, her muscles felt more relaxed, and her energy levels soared. She even shared her newfound discovery with her friends at the book club. At first, they were skeptical. Cherry juice? Could something so simple really make a difference? But as they saw the positive changes in Martha, they began to take notice. Some of them even started drinking cherry juice themselves, with equally impressive results. Now that Martha had a new nighttime routine sorted, it was time to adjust the diet. Starting with one of the things the YouTube video had suggested. This time, a common household staple. With her nightly cherry juice routine firmly in place, Martha felt a surge of confidence. The improved sleep and reduced joint pain had given her a much-needed boost. She was ready to tackle the next item on her list: breakfast. She had always been a creature of habit, starting her day with a simple piece of toast and a cup of coffee. But the YouTube video had suggested a healthier alternative: Greek yogurt. Martha wasn't quite sure what to expect. She had tried regular yogurt in the past, but she found it too sweet and not very filling. Greek yogurt, she soon discovered, was a whole different story. The next morning, she ventured back to the grocery store, this time heading to the dairy aisle. She found a variety of Greek yogurts, ranging from plain to flavored, full-fat to non-fat. She decided to start with a plain, non-fat variety, figuring she could add her own toppings. Back in her kitchen, she opened the container and peered inside. The yogurt was thick and creamy, with a slightly tangy aroma. She spooned some into a bowl, feeling a little apprehensive. But as she took her first bite, her face lit up. It was delicious. Not sweet or artificial, but rich and satisfying. She grabbed the container and read the label more carefully. Now, Greek yogurt is special, the YouTube woman had explained. Because it's strained to remove most of the whey, which makes it thicker, creamier, and much higher in protein than regular yogurt. And protein is essential for maintaining and building muscle mass, which is especially important as we age. Martha thought about her weakening muscles, her dwindling strength. She needed all the protein she could get. The YouTube video had also emphasized the importance of probiotics, those beneficial bacteria that live in your gut and help with digestion. Greek yogurt is a great source of probiotics, the woman had said. These little guys help balance your digestive system, improve nutrient absorption, and boost your immune system. Martha had always struggled with digestive issues, especially as she got older. If Greek yogurt could help improve her gut health, it would be a welcome bonus. She decided to jazz up her breakfast by adding some toppings to the plain Greek yogurt. She sprinkled in a handful of blueberries, their vibrant color adding a cheerful touch to her morning. She also added a tablespoon of chia seeds, another suggestion from the YouTube video. Chia seeds are packed with fiber, the woman had explained. Fiber helps you feel full and satisfied, which can prevent overeating. They're also a great source of omega-3 fatty acids, which are good for your heart and brain. As Martha savored her Greek yogurt parfait, she felt a sense of contentment wash over her. It was delicious, nutritious, and surprisingly filling. She knew she had found a breakfast that she could stick with. And she was right. Over the next few weeks, Greek yogurt became a staple in her diet. She experimented with different toppings, raspberries, strawberries, granola, nuts, always keeping it healthy and delicious. She noticed a significant change in her energy levels. She felt more alert, more focused, and less prone to those mid-morning crashes that had plagued her in the past. She also noticed that her digestive issues had improved. She felt less bloated, less gassy, and more comfortable in her own skin. Her rose gardening was now more efficient and she even had time in the afternoons to read. Martha realized that taking care of herself meant she would be able to live her life to the fullest. Now it was time to change the main meals. What will Martha change about her main meals and how will they benefit her? Next, we explore how the addition of certain vegetables will change Martha's diet forever in Chapter 8, The Potato Promise. Martha was on a roll. The cherry juice had improved her sleep, the Greek yogurt had boosted her energy, and she was starting to feel like her old self again. She was ready to tackle her rose garden with renewed vigor. It had been weeks since she was last able to do this, and a familiar sense of joy came back. The weather was beautiful, the sun warm and inviting. Martha put on her gardening gloves, grabbed her tools, and headed outside, eager to immerse herself in her beloved roses. She spent hours weeding, pruning, and watering, carefully tending to each plant with loving attention. She felt strong, energized, and capable. The aches and pains that had plagued her for so long seemed to have vanished. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across Sunshine Valley, Martha surveyed her garden with pride. It was looking better than it had in months. The roses were blooming beautifully, their vibrant colors filling the air with a sweet, intoxicating fragrance. Exhausted but happy, Martha headed inside, looking forward to a relaxing evening and a restful night's sleep. She made herself a light dinner, drank her cherry juice, and settled into bed, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. She had accomplished something. But the next morning, she woke up with a familiar twinge in her knees. She tried to ignore it, telling herself it was just a little stiffness from all the gardening. But as she got out of bed, the twinge grew into a throbbing ache. Her joints were swollen and tender. Her muscles felt tight and sore. She tried to push through it, telling herself it would pass. But as the day wore on, the pain intensified. Simple tasks, like walking to the kitchen or bending down to pick something up, became excruciating. The joy she had felt the day before had evaporated, replaced by a familiar sense of despair. Had she overdone it? Had she pushed herself too hard? Was she destined to be trapped in this cycle of pain and fatigue forever? She popped 2 ibuprofen, hoping for some relief, but the pain lingered. She tried to distract herself, watching television and reading a book, but nothing could take her mind off the throbbing in her joints. The whispers of despair returned, louder and more insistent than ever. They told her she was foolish to think she could ever be strong again. That her body was broken, and there was nothing she could do to fix it. That night, she tossed and turned in bed, unable to find a comfortable position. The pain kept her awake, her thoughts racing. She began to doubt everything. Was the cherry juice really working? Was the Greek yogurt just a placebo? Was she just fooling herself? Maybe Dr. Evans was right. Maybe medication was the only answer. Maybe she needed to accept her limitations and give up on her dreams of a vibrant, active life. As she lay there in the darkness, tears welled up in her eyes. She felt defeated, discouraged, and utterly hopeless. The light she had found just days before seemed to have flickered out, leaving her trapped in the shadows of her own despair. The setback came at an especially bad time. Her family was coming for a big visit next week and she really wanted to be up for it. Could she still make it? What was the way that Martha persevered? In the next part of the story, we will see if Martha can stick to her goals, and how she implements her plan for a new life. That night, Martha did what she always did when she needed answers: she turned to the internet. She spent hours researching joint pain, inflammation, and natural remedies. She was still convinced that she could manage her condition without relying solely on medication. She stumbled upon articles about the importance of diet in managing inflammation and the role of certain foods in providing sustained energy. One food, in particular, kept popping up: the sweet potato. Martha had always thought of potatoes as simple, starchy side dishes. She'd always picked mashed potatoes at dinners. She never put much thought into the different kinds or nutritional value of potatoes, though. She never realized they could be more than just a vessel for butter and sour cream. But what she found out was quite impressive. According to the articles, sweet potatoes were nutritional powerhouses, packed with complex carbohydrates, fiber, vitamins, and minerals. They were also a good source of antioxidants, which could help fight inflammation. Now, complex carbohydrates are different from simple carbohydrates, like white bread or sugary snacks, a narrator would explain. Simple carbs give you a quick burst of energy, but then you crash. Complex carbs, on the other hand, are digested more slowly, providing a steady and sustained release of energy, which is crucial for maintaining muscle function and preventing fatigue. Martha realized that she had been relying too heavily on simple carbs in her diet. She often ate white rice with dinner and reached for sugary snacks when she felt tired. No wonder she was experiencing energy crashes. The articles also highlighted the importance of vitamin A in sweet potatoes. Vitamin A is essential for immune function, vision health, and skin health, the narrator would continue. It's also a powerful antioxidant that can help protect your cells from damage. Martha had heard about the benefits of antioxidants, but she never realized how important vitamin A was. She knew she needed to make a change. The next day, Martha decided to experiment. She replaced the white rice in her dinner with a baked sweet potato, topped with a drizzle of olive oil and a sprinkle of cinnamon. The first bite surprised her. It was delicious. Sweet, savory, and satisfying. She savored every mouthful, feeling a sense of nourishment and well-being. Over the next few days, Martha continued to incorporate sweet potatoes into her diet. She baked them, roasted them, mashed them, and even added them to her soups and stews. She enjoyed the versatility and the delicious flavor. And she began to notice a difference. Her energy levels were more stable throughout the day. She no longer experienced those mid-afternoon slumps. Her joint pain seemed to lessen, and her muscles felt stronger. She even started to feel more motivated to exercise. She took longer walks in her neighborhood, enjoying the sunshine and the fresh air. She felt grateful for her progress. The sweet potatoes gave her a feeling of wanting to push herself further. So that is exactly what she did next. What does Martha discover on her journey, and what new information will she find as she attends her appointment with the physical therapist? We will find out what comes next in the story about her new lease on life. With her energy levels stabilized thanks to the sweet potatoes, Martha felt ready to tackle a bigger challenge. She decided to revisit her diet and look for ways to incorporate more lean protein. She remembered something else the woman in the YouTube video had mentioned: seafood. The woman had specifically highlighted the benefits of scallops, touting them as a muscle-nourishing powerhouse. Martha had never been a big fan of seafood. She found it intimidating to cook and wasn't sure if she liked the taste. The only seafood she had tried was an occasional shrimp or fish. She did not eat fish often at all. But she knew that if she wanted to make a real difference in her health, she needed to step outside her comfort zone. So, she decided to give scallops a try. She went to her local seafood market, feeling a little overwhelmed by the variety of options. She talked to the fishmonger, a friendly man with a wealth of knowledge about all things seafood. He recommended a bag of fresh scallops, telling her they were easy to cook and incredibly delicious. Back in her kitchen, Martha carefully rinsed the scallops and patted them dry. She seasoned them with a little salt, pepper, and garlic powder, and then heated a skillet with a drizzle of olive oil. Now, scallops are packed with high-quality protein, a narrator would explain. Protein is essential for building and repairing muscle tissue, and it's especially important as we age, when we tend to lose muscle mass. Martha knew she needed to prioritize protein in her diet. She had been relying too heavily on carbohydrates, which weren't doing enough to support her muscle strength. The YouTube woman had also mentioned the importance of omega-3 fatty acids, which are abundant in seafood like scallops. Omega-3 fatty acids are essential for heart health, brain health, and joint health, the narrator would continue. They help reduce inflammation, improve cognitive function, and support overall well-being. Martha's high cholesterol had been a major concern for her doctor. If scallops could help lower her cholesterol and improve her heart health, it was worth a try. She carefully placed the scallops in the hot skillet, listening to them sizzle. She cooked them for just a few minutes on each side, until they were golden brown and slightly firm to the touch. It was surprisingly easy. She served the scallops with a side of roasted vegetables, feeling proud of herself for trying something new. As she took her first bite, her eyes widened. They were delicious. Tender, succulent, and flavorful. She couldn't believe she had been missing out on this culinary treasure for so long. Over the next few weeks, Martha incorporated scallops into her diet on a regular basis. She grilled them, pan-seared them, and added them to her pasta dishes. She experimented with different recipes, discovering new flavors and textures. And she began to notice a difference. Her muscles felt stronger, and her joints were less stiff. She found herself walking with more ease and confidence. During her follow-up visit with Dr. Evans, she was excited to share her progress, and the results of her lab tests were more stunning than even she had believed. What results did Dr. Evans have to share, and what changes will this now cause to her list of new habits? We find out next in the next phase of Martha's story. Dr. Evans was beaming. "Martha," she said, her eyes twinkling, "I'm absolutely amazed. Your cholesterol levels have dropped significantly, your blood pressure is stable, and your joint inflammation has decreased. What have you been doing? Martha smiled, feeling a surge of pride and gratitude. I've been making some changes to my diet and lifestyle, she explained. I started drinking cherry juice, eating Greek yogurt, and incorporating sweet potatoes and seafood into my meals. Dr. Evans nodded approvingly. These are all excellent choices, she said. It's clear that you're taking control of your health, and the results speak for themselves. Keep it up. Martha left the doctor's office feeling like a new woman. The validation from Dr. Evans gave her an extra boost of confidence. She knew she was on the right track. With her health steadily improving, Martha felt ready to reclaim another important part of her life, her rose garden. It had been weeks since she had been able to tend to it properly, and she was eager to get her hands dirty again. She was not just going to tend to it again. She was going to make it her own. She put on her gardening gloves, grabbed her tools, and headed outside, feeling a surge of excitement. The garden greeted her with open arms, its roses blooming in a riot of colors. She spent hours weeding, pruning, and watering, carefully tending to each plant with loving attention. She felt strong, capable, and deeply connected to nature. It felt like her garden was alive again. She even started experimenting with new varieties of roses, adding splashes of color and fragrance to her already vibrant garden. She felt a sense of creativity and joy that she hadn't experienced in years. Her grandchildren, Emily and Josh, started visiting more often, eager to help Grandma Martha in the garden. They loved to dig in the dirt, plant new flowers, and watch the butterflies flutter among the roses. Martha cherished these moments, feeling grateful for the opportunity to share her love of gardening with her grandchildren. She no longer felt like a burden. She felt like a blessing. She and the grandchildren took many pictures to document the process. They got pictures of the first sprout, the first rose blooming, and of course themselves enjoying the work. Her social life also blossomed. She reconnected with her friends at the book club, sharing her story and inspiring them to make changes in their own lives. They were amazed by her transformation, her newfound energy, and her radiant health. They asked her for advice, eager to learn her secrets. Martha was happy to share her knowledge and encourage them to take control of their own health. She even started volunteering at a local senior center, teaching other older adults about the benefits of healthy eating and active living. She felt a sense of purpose and fulfillment that she had been missing for so long. It was her mission. Martha's story spread throughout Sunshine Valley, inspiring countless others to make positive changes in their lives. She became a symbol of hope, resilience, and the power of the human spirit. People began calling her the Rose Lady and all knew of the inspiring acts and story she was now living. Martha felt so proud of herself and the changes she had made in her own life. She was so happy that those changes had positively impacted others too. Martha felt the impact that being a teacher had on her, and that it had always been a part of her to try to help others. What final decision will Martha make about her new lifestyle and what advice will she share to others? That is coming up in Martha's story, stay tuned. Martha looked around her garden, the roses in full bloom, their colors even more vibrant than she remembered. She smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached all the way to her eyes. It had been a long and challenging journey, but she had finally arrived. She had transformed her life, not only physically but also emotionally and spiritually. She knew she wanted to share her story with a wider audience, to inspire others who were struggling with similar challenges. She wanted to let them know that it was never too late to reclaim their health, their vitality, and their joy. She sat down at her computer, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She had never made a video before, but she knew that YouTube was a powerful platform for sharing stories and connecting with people. She knew it was what she had to do to help others. She started writing, pouring her heart and soul into the script. She shared her struggles, her doubts, and her triumphs. She talked about the importance of diet, exercise, and mindset. She emphasized the power of small changes, sustainable habits, and self-compassion. If I can do it, she wrote, anyone can. It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress. It's about taking control of your life and choosing to live it to the fullest, no matter your age or your circumstances. She recorded the video, speaking from the heart, her voice filled with warmth and sincerity. She shared her tips, her recipes, and her words of encouragement. She wanted to give people the tools they needed to start their own journeys to better health. She edited the video, adding photos and videos of her rose garden, her grandchildren, and her friends. She wanted to make it visually appealing and emotionally engaging. Martha was ready for the world to see. She uploaded the video to YouTube, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. She wasn't sure how it would be received, but she knew she had done her best. Within days, the video went viral. People from all over the world watched it, shared it, and commented on it, praising Martha for her honesty, her vulnerability, and her inspiring message. "Your story has changed my life," one commenter wrote. "I've been feeling so hopeless lately, but your video has given me the motivation to start making changes. Thank you. I'm 65 years old, and I thought my best days were behind me," another commenter wrote. "But your video has shown me that it's never too late to reclaim my health and vitality. I'm starting today." Martha was overwhelmed by the positive response. She realized that she had touched a nerve, that her story resonated with so many people who were feeling lost, discouraged, and hopeless. Her mission to help others came true. The video made her a star and gave her a voice. She used these new assets to help the local community. From that moment on, Martha became a sought-after speaker, sharing her story at senior centers, community events, and health conferences. She inspired countless others to take control of their lives and live them to the fullest. She continued to tend her rose garden, cherishing the beauty and tranquility it brought to her life. She spent quality time with her grandchildren, creating memories that would last a lifetime. She enjoyed the company of her friends, sharing laughter, stories, and cups of tea. The tea was now a staple in her life. Martha knew that life wasn't always easy. There would be challenges and setbacks along the way. But she also knew that she had the strength, the resilience, and the determination to overcome anything. She had learned that it was never too late to start living your best life. It was all about making a choice, taking a step, and never giving up hope. The Rose Lady, as Martha was now known, had become a true icon for her community. And this is the story of Martha. Sometimes, the most beautiful roses bloom only after the harshest winters. Martha's story reminds us that age is just a number, and that it's never too late to cultivate a life filled with health, purpose, and joy. From battling aches and despair to rediscovering her strength and inspiring an entire community, Martha's journey proves that even the smallest changes can blossom into a truly remarkable transformation. She took the advice from the woman in the video and really made it her own. All the work that she had done really paid off for her. Now she continues to live the beautiful life that she always wanted. If Martha's story has touched your heart and sparked a desire for change within you, know that you're not alone. Remember that you have the power to rewrite your own story, one healthy choice at a time. So keep watching, and always keep growing. Do not be afraid to start living your new life today. If you found inspiration in Martha's journey, we'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What small change will you commit to today? And if you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs a little encouragement. Also be sure to subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Remember, the most beautiful chapters of your life may be yet to come.